Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Glad we're here together this morning, carrying on tradition. Let me get this, get my co-host up and post it. Yeah. There you go. Assalamu alaikum, Tyson. What's going on, man? Are you muted? I'm muted. I think you muted.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everything is good. Alhamdulillah. It's a good morning.
Yeah,
Happy
good.
to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. Everything is alhamdulillah. Allah's blessings just keep flowing. Which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? Not one. Not one. So no chit chat. Yeah, it's like you here, you locked in, family's back, you in the country. You did the Stanford piece. Give a 2-minute shot on what went down at Stanford last week.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It was good. So that's where I was headed last week, last Saturday. So there's a group they're called the PJDC. They're public defenders, and they work with our young folk, juveniles, and they invited me there to like kick off their weekend festivities. And I one of the first things I told them, I said, we just need to be real about what's going on. Like y'all work in the system, and y'all encounter our young people after they've already been captured by the system. I said, I'm working with some young folks who are eventually going to become your clients before, they become your clients. Mm-hmm. So I was telling them that if we're real about trying to make change, y'all need to be more active beforehand. You can't be waiting until the system receives them and then you do everything that you do. And this wasn't, me trying to critique them, because they fight extremely hard for young people. Mm-hmm. I said, if we keep working with the system the way that it is, it's going to be what y'all are seeing. You're going to receive them in the system and you're going to fight hard for them. What can we do to break this down before? And I said, I'm giving y'all an open invitation. I'm working with hundreds, sometimes thousands of our young people. Their families need your support. These young people need your support. These schools need to change their rules and their policies so they're not calling police on Black kids because they're having a bad day or, an emotional reaction to something that happened in their family or in their community. So it was good. And several people already reached out, plan on following up, because my goal, because this is the example that was set before me, because I'm like doing a lot of work in community and in schools, I want to have as many resources at my disposal. And so if I show up to schools and school districts and I have an entire fleet of lawyers that can apply that influence to them to get them to do right by our young people and by our community, that's in our benefit. So that was my intention for being there. I wanted to make that impression and speak clearly to that. And, several people responded. And then I'm following up with the people who run that organization. I'll be meeting with their executive director this week, inshallah, and cementing that relationship so we can do more.
Allah, that's wonderful. That is righteous activism, alhamdulillah. So I'm going to step back and let you continue to step up. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, that's all. Assalamu wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. So last week we started with the section and carry on tradition, moving into the tradition of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And when I looked back on the video when it went on Facebook, I'm like, oh, y'all weren't able to see the slides that I had, because I was reading some content off of some slides. And now, Imam Fahim, is it all right if I show something real quick before a short video, real quick before I go into the slides or into the?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I want to show y'all. This is this is the content that I'm sharing with students. I want to show you this one. So one of my main programs that I do in schools is called the Black program. I'm getting it set up for y'all so y'all can see it. And so the school year, just started 24-25 school year, and we're getting ready to launch the majority of our program. And we started with one of our schools, which is Castro Valley Elementary School. But we're going to be doing the middle schools in Castro Valley, the high school in Castro Valley. We're in 7 different school districts right now doing the Black program. Across those 7 different school districts, will be affecting somewhere between like 1,250, so 1,250 to 1,300 Black students in our Black program, which is great. Last year, 23-24 school year, we had 1,000 Black students at the end of the school year in our Black program sessions. To start this year, we're already surpassing that. We're close to 1,300 Black students that are going to be in our Black program sessions. So I just wanted to show you this right here, because the stuff that we talk about, the carry on tradition piece, it drives everything that we do in our Black program. And this is what our young people are being exposed to. So this is the promo video that we created for Natomas Unified. That's one of our district partners. We got a number of district partners here in the Bay Area, but I just wanted to show y'all this real quick. Here we go.
Greetings and peace to the Natomas Unified School District community. Black program is back. We're extremely excited to be with Natomas Unified again for the 2024-2025 school year. And this year, y'all, we're adding another school. So last year, we had the opportunity, the honor, and the privilege to work with Natomas Middle School and Natomas High School. We're going to be there again. And this year, we're adding Endocrine High School. And across all 3 schools, we're going to be working with close to 500 students. Because when we do the Black program, we're building leaders and actors collectively. So the community knowledge, collective knowledge that inspires what we do in this year 2 is rooted in the tradition of our ancestors. Malcolm X, who said, when I is replaced with we, even illness becomes. Our gathering allows us to become better, stronger, to become well as a community. Our connection with our history, culture, and tradition allows us to heal, grow, and be empowered by what ancestors. For those of you who are moving into year 1, it is rooted in the tradition of our ancestors. People without knowledge of their past history, culture, it's like a true deep, unapologetic, Black-centered understanding of who we are as a people. What you learn and teach you more about yourself, history that we come from, people that we represent. See yourself in the light of your people. See something out. So all y'all got to do is just come to the session. The hard part has already been done. We already have all of our paperwork in place. We're here, we're going to be at the school sites. So all you have to do is come to the sessions at the middle, come to the sessions at the high school, come to the sessions at the end. I cannot wait, y'all. Be in community. Let's see the leadership potential that we have. Let's get back in the community. Let's be inspired by the power of our collective, and let's bring thousands and thousands of years now. People stay to us in this present. See y'all soon. Till then. Out. Building leaders, activists, collective knowledge.
All right, so that's our Black program promo right there that we do. And in that one, part of the reason why I wanted to show that one was so you could see, like, we have a curriculum that goes for 4 years, because we use it in middle schools, we use it in high schools. So if we're encountering a high school student, we want to be able to be with them for all 4 years of their high school experience, and we can extend it beyond that as well. But the year one is connected to who we've been talking about, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Year two goes into El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X. Year three, we add on that. Year four, we add on that. And it's just a beautiful thing for our young people to be exposed to who we are, and for it to happen in such a very powerful and direct way. And the tradition of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey it's amazing. I mean, so much of what we see in our people, in our history, is that it's amazing. But let me go back to where we were here. Okay, so last week when we started the tradition of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, I had this picture up, and I was talking about how using the AI tool, I had to train it to give us the likeness of Garvey. And then in this particular picture, I was trying to depict him in his youth, early to mid-20s. And I have him on a boat because this is him making his journey from Jamaica to the United States. So prior to this, he had spent time, of course, in Jamaica. So let me go to these slides. So these were the slides that I thought I had up, but they didn't come up last time. So it says he's born in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. Talks a little bit about his parents, how he became a printer's apprentice. And this was something that was very valuable for him later in life, because through the UNIA, just like in the Nation of Islam, we had Muhammad Speaks, which then becomes the Final Call, and the Muslim Journal. You got to be in control of putting out information from your community. You have to control the resources, especially the informational resources that are in your community. And we see that outside of that. Another person from our tradition who we won't be talking about in this book, but Carter G. Woodson, one of the first things that he did when he formed the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History was develop a journal to be able to produce accurate information about our history, culture, and tradition. And so we come from people who've been doing this. And then, like if we step outside the local context of Bilalians or Black people here in the Western Hemisphere from the time of, Western European colonization, who were the first people? Our people. Who were the first people to be thinking? Who were the first people to engage in using sounds that we call speech? Who were the first people to develop the written word? Our folks. We've been doing that. But in this context that we're talking about, it's important for us to identify that. And so Garvey began to master that technology of the printing press and putting a paper together, seeing the wisdom of, I have this technology that I can put in the community, and we can put our words out there. We can put our message out there to the people. And so when, of course, he founds the UNIA, establishes it here in the United States, has all these members, the Negro world becomes one of the most consumed Black papers on the planet. He learned that skill early on. All right, begins his union organizing career. 1907, participated in the printers' strike. So he's getting some political experience and political education. Then, he travels abroad for a while. So here, skipping ahead, travels to Central America. 1912, Garvey studied at Birkbeck University of London, and worked for the African Times and Orient Review. In this era right here, I didn't get a chance to touch on it last time because I was moving a little quick. He interacts with an elder, and this is such a beautiful part of the history, right? That we're going to see time and time again over the next couple of weeks as I share my little vignettes from Carry On Tradition. I talked about it a little bit last week. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey benefited greatly from interactions that he had with Booker T. Washington. So that's coming up next on the slide. When he was in London, he had another mentor, a brother by the name of Duse Muhammad, who was described as Sudanese and Egyptian, and also a practicing Muslim. And there are some people who say that the like the mantra of the UNIA, one God, one destiny, one people, one aim, one destiny. That came from his interactions with Dusay Muhammad because of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, the whole idea of Tawheed and the oneness. So we become stronger when we're together and we see that we're one people, we have one aim, we have one destiny, we have one God. When we can bring our people together with a unified understanding, we become stronger. And so I haven't seen any clear evidence that supports that, but Dusay Muhammad was his mentor. He learned, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey learned a great deal from him. And then based on that, when he comes back to Jamaica, he establishes the UNIA. And then he begins interacting with another elder, Booker T. Washington. And then immediately after those interactions, makes his decision to come to the United States. And then when he's here, we know that in the early 1910s, 19-teens, you have the Moorish Science Temple being established, which is our brother Noble Drew Ali. So there's some ways to see how Islam in different forms were around or could have potentially influenced the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and then what he established. But what is very, very clear is he benefited greatly from elders that were around him that took time to support, to educate, to pour into him. And that became part of his foundation. And I just think that's a really, really beautiful thing for us to see. I do my best to make sure that when I'm working with the young folks in the Black program or whatever, that they see that they see the power and the beauty of this tradition being passed on from generation to generation to generation to generation. This is a beautiful thing. And we see that when we look at the men in our community, and we see that when we look at the women in our community. I'll give you a quick example. So one of my teachers is a sister by the name of Elaine Brown. She's the only woman that ever led the Black Panther Party. So she was taught by Brother Huey P. Newton. She was also mentored by a brother in LA by the name of Bunchy Carter, who was the leader of the Black Panther chapter in LA. She knew Fred Hampton, like all these names that we talk about from the Black Panther Party, those were her colleagues and comrades. And some of those people directly trained her in leadership, and she was gifted and talented as well. When, I spend time with her, she tells me about the women who inspired her. She'd be like, Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, who was in Mississippi. My mother's family's from Mississippi. So she talked about that. Then when you get into the story of Fannie Lou Hamer had had a strong relationship with Sister Ella Baker. That's beautiful. That's powerful. And then we get into Sister Ida B. Wells and, not just like picking women out. You see that generational connection. And especially when those women are in the same place to be able to support each other in their leadership is there because it's just part of who we are as a people. All right, back to Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So then when we get into him leaving Jamaica, coming to the United States, establishing the UNIA, growth of the UNIA, Black Star Line gets established in 1919. The power that the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey had in the United States and globally, there's no way for us to quantify it. I mean, the UNIA was so powerful that the US government, before it was called the FBI, it was called the BOI, Bureau of Investigation, a name that's very familiar to just about all of us on this call, a man by the name of J. Edgar Hoover. He hires the first Black undercover agents in the BOI. What was their mission? To infiltrate the UNIA because it was so powerful. To infiltrate and sabotage. And there are some decisions that Garvey made as the leader of the UNIA that weren't in the best interest of himself, of the UNIA, of the direction that the UNIA was going in. But the fact that there was state-sponsored infiltration and sabotage underway made it where we were never going to see the true power of the UNIA because it's just a matter of time. I mean, you're up against one of the biggest military surveillance industrial complexes in the early part of the 20th century. That's what happened. And then via that, the trumped up charges that they put up on Marcus Garvey to have him deported. So basically, you can stay here in the United States and sit in this prison, or you can get out now, but you got to leave this country. So Hoover's work eventually leads to Garvey's deportation. But in between all of that and after all of that, the UNIA becomes the largest organization in the history of the United States. I mean, this is very important for us to understand. Like the height of the Nation of Islam, extremely big. Hundreds and thousands of people participating in the Nation of Islam. At the height of the UNIA's power, somewhere between 3 to 6 million. That's a big gap. We just don't know. And globally, people all connected to this idea of one aim, one people, one God, one destiny. That's why the US government said we gotta do something about this person. You can't have somebody who, when he says move, you got millions of people who are moving in that direction. And then, of course, we know the incredible work that the UNIA did, which is part of the formula that we see in the nation and that we still see in our community. Property, businesses. Hell, let me go back to my slides over here. And this right here, like these slides that you're seeing, this is the stuff that I put in front of the young people, because we gotta see our history. Here we go. So this is something that represents the Black Star Line. So he eventually had about 3 ships, but this is part of that government infiltration and sabotage. The government agents forced Garvey to pay prices 2 to 3 times more than what the ships were actually worth and buy ships that were substandard. There's documentation that one of the agents was throwing like foreign matter into the fuel in order to sabotage the ships. I mean, it was crazy what they did. But this was an ingenious move on behalf of our community through the UNIA. And then when we just start talking about the businesses, so down here, the Negro Factories Corporation was the business wing of the UNIA. They had grocery stores, they had restaurants, steam laundry, tailor and dressmaking shops, millinery and hat stores, a publishing house. They own property. This sounds very similar to what we see with the nation and what the nation was able to do, the businesses, the schools, all of that. You have to be in control of the resources within your community. You gotta be. And so in this tradition of fighting for the freedom and the liberation of our people, the vehicle of the UNIA, it is a shining, bright example of that. And in one of the pieces that we talked about last week, which is why I put the UNIA in the example of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey in the book, Carry On Tradition, was because of the African Legion. In the nation, the Fruit of Islam was established as a self-defense mechanism for that community and for our community. The African Legion was the same thing. The pictures that we have that represent these brothers who were in uniform, who were trained. Many of them had actual military experience because they may have been involved in World War I. They have fighting experience, self-defense. They knew how to box. They learned some basic martial arts techniques. So the UNIA built itself with the understanding that we need to organize our people. We need to control the resources within our community, which also comes from the Tuskegee example that we talked about a little bit last week with Booker T. Washington. But when we do that, what else do we need to do? We need to protect our community. Not that we're going to be bullying or colonizing, imperializing on anybody else, but in the event that somebody comes to bring with ill intent to our community, we need to be ready to protect and defend ourselves. And so they built that into the culture of who they were. And it was powerful. It was transformative. And it was something that you saw a lot in our community organizations in the early part of the 20th century. And this, for me right now, the last little point that I'm gonna make, this is not a critique of Dr. King in the way that his philosophy of nonviolence has been weaponized against many people, especially our community. But when we get into the civil rights era, it's the way that the white institution likes to talk about our communities. Everything was just nonviolence. Nah, fam. And even this right here, this is not active violence. This is, we're prepared to defend ourselves, which is a human right, which is an internationally recognized right, which is a God-given right, which is our understanding according to our tradition in Islam. We're prepared to defend ourselves. And it's a beautiful thing to see in our tradition. So I'll bring us back though to this right here. So we talk about Black Star Line. We talk about the other work of the UNIA, the businesses. So all that's covered here in this section. And then the way that I wrap this up, which is consistent with everything else that precedes it, we have our legacy of Garvey. And in this one, I tried to create this image of him shortly before he passes away. And so he's a little bit older, a little gray in the hair, a little gray in the mustache. And we're just talking about the importance of his work through the Negro world. So many Black voices, activists, academics, artists were able to get their work out there through his example of establishing these businesses and owning property and organizing the people into, again, the largest organization in the history of the United States of people of color. So out of the Black folks, Latino folk, Asian folk, everybody, add all those groups up, you never have a group that was bigger than the UNIA. His legacy is so amazing and so powerful. And to be a brother that came from Jamaica, to come to the United States, to be recognized as a national hero in Jamaica, to be recognized as a force here in the United States, to be recognized as a force globally. This brother did so much and in a short period of time, because we can accomplish so much in our community with our people. Doesn't matter the amount of time when we're united. And that's one of the powerful, powerful lessons that comes from the community of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 23 years. In 23 years, from 610 to 632, 22 to 23 years, the Arabian Peninsula was completely transformed. Every social, cultural, political institution was renewed with a revolutionary understanding rooted in the tradition of Islam. That's 2 decades. Revolution in our lifetime is possible. How do we know? Because Islam. Revolution is always possible if we're able to unify and take advantage of the conditions that are in front of us. So that's just really powerful lessons that come to me when I look at the tradition of Garvey. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And then the next piece that we move into after Garvey in the book, The Tradition of the Nation.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. As always. So, there's a saying, it says it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's wonderful, wonderful. Alhamdulillah. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We continue on this now. We just started a Facebook Live piece, and I'll say it at this point so that those who are coming in, that if you want to get the slide presentation portion of this, then you need to go to masjidorathene.org and tap on the Rise link. Then you do that. So, and I've put that in the notes for the Facebook Live. But beyond that, we got to go. So continuing I know we ended on a question. You know, it left people wondering, well, what is the one word answer to the Negro problem? We have some responses. That's wonderful, and my idea is and was say, okay, well, what comes next? And as I prepared for it, as happens, it's like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to go just from point A to point B. And the answer is, well, no, there's a whole segment that has to be laid out, and that's what we're going to be doing here today. We don't know how much we're going to cover, as we never really know how much we're going to cover in a given day. However, that's we got to get started if we're ever going to get finished. So
what happens in another?
So as you saw in the opening slide, diagnosis, negrosis, the predisposition towards social dysfunction. And that's what we're going to be detailing today, and we'll know why as we proceed. This verse from the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قال يا عدم أنبئهم بأسمائهم فلما أنبأهم بأسمائهم قال ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون صدق الله العظيم. And an expression of this is that that is Allah, he said, "O Adam, inform them of their names." And when he informed them of their names, he said, "Did I not tell you that I know the unseen aspects of the heavens and the earth, and I know what you reveal and what you have concealed?" And of course, in that same section of verses, and all the angels bowed, but not so Iblis. So the idea is that once Adam named the names, then the angels bowed, and that's a formula. That's a I'm going to call it an algorithm, meaning that you follow this process and then you get this result. What is the process? You name a thing properly, then you get its service. So when Allah says, "Sakhara lakum ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard," when He says, "I have made to serve you everything in the heavens and in the earth," that's not going to happen until you name the things properly. You have to name the wind properly. You have to name the sun properly. You have to name the water properly in order to get wind energy and solar energy and hydroelectric energy. And so it is with magnetism and any other kind of benefit that you want to get from creation. It will only come by naming it correctly. So what we're aiming at is naming this condition properly. So let's carry on with that. This is a movie, Into the Wild, very interesting movie. It's I'll call it a docudrama, but it's run in a very narrative way, as like a quote unquote as a fictional story, but it is the true story of an individual. It's directed by Sean Penn, and it's based on the true story of Christopher McCandless, a young man who abandons his possessions, gives away his savings, and embarks on a journey into the wilderness in search of a deeper connection with nature and personal freedom. After graduating from college, McCandless rejects materialism and social expectations, traveling across the U.S. and eventually venturing into the Alaskan wilderness to live off the land. Throughout his journey, he encounters people who leave lasting impressions on him while seeking meaning and self-discovery. So, those of us who are baby boomers, you know about the hippies, etc., turn on, tune in, drop out, something like that. That was that Timothy Leary thing, and that when the CIA did the acid test, LSD test, right here in Berkeley and on several other campuses in the country. But let's not digress to that kind of covert government behavior, which has always been referenced, and that's really a serious mask that needs to be fully taken off of these organizations. But avoid the digression. So the point is that it fits into the schema of what was going on with young people at that time. There's a quote in this movie that relates to calling things by their proper name. Get this, be real clear on this. It's all about the proper naming. Everything that we say today, it's about the proper naming, right? So there's a line that relates to calling things by their proper name, and the line is things, things, things. Just call each thing by its right name. Now, Christopher McCandless, who is the protagonist, the person about whom the movie is written, ultimately he dies because he fails, and they have his diary. He kept a diary, and so when he was found, they found him with his diary. Ultimately, he dies because he fails to identify the plants or the berries he consumes correctly. That is, he was consuming certain plants and berries, but he failed to identify them correctly. McCandless mistakenly eats toxic, I don't even know how to say this, Hereditary alapinum, alapinum seeds, believing they are safe. These seeds contain a neurotoxin that prevents the body from metabolizing food properly, leading to starvation. It was this tragic mistake, that is, misidentifying the plants and not recognizing their toxicity, in other words, not calling them by their proper names, correctly identifying the plants that is, the failure to do so, was a critical factor in the tragic outcome of his journey. So again, name things right and you get the benefit. Name things wrong and you get the harm. I'm going to say that 3 times. Name things right, you get the benefit. Name things wrong, you get the harm. Name things right, you get the benefit. Name things wrong, you get the harm. That should be on a bumper. I haven't got to where I'm going today, but the punctuation of that statement is so very critical, because when we get to the core of this part, even this part of the presentation, I'm talking about the whole presentation. This is when you have to start checking into your own emotions, your own sentiments, your own sensitivities, where you can start finding out, well, oh, okay, well, I got a blockage there. I have a limitation there. I have this kind of like, I don't know if I want to cross that threshold kind of issue. But if you don't, then you'll find yourself in the condition of improperly naming. And we've just shown by example or anecdotally that failing to name something correctly could mean you're consuming something that could cost you your life. And we mean that in the fullest sense. But let's carry on. So what we're speaking of is understanding the Negro and Negrosis. Now, when I've said this in the past, I have said it in a kind of, punchline kind of humor invoking manner. And yeah, that was, when it first came X number of years ago, whenever that was. Excuse me. But this is no joke. This is no joke. This is not hyperbole. This is not rhetoric. I'm saying this term deserves a clinical, medical place in what do you call it? DSM and the diagnostic something, the manual, whatever that diagnostic man, Negrosis should be in that manual. And we're going to go on. Negro or negrosis refers to a complex set of pathologies observed among a significant number of African Americans. It is marked by behaviors, character traits, and social conditions that within psychological or medical frameworks manifest as symptoms of a congenital. That means it is intergenerational. It's passed on in the body, in the blood, in the DNA, if you will. Manifests as symptoms of a congenital syndrome. These symptoms are reflected in abnormal and dysfunctional thinking and behavior. So, definition, that's what negrosis is. And a Negro is someone who is suffering from this negrosis. They're suffering from a complex set of pathologies observed among a significant number of African Americans. Why should we recognize negrosis as a distinct condition? The answer is twofold. First, naming a pathology allows us to confront it. If you don't know what the name of it is and what, therefore, what its nature is, then you don't know how to deal with it, right? Indeed, the way that you define a problem is going to dictate the way that you approach a solution. But if you define the problem inappropriately, there's no way for you to have the right solution. So we have to name and we have to identify what the pathology actually is first, because just as we cannot combat a disease without first diagnosing it, we cannot address the systemic and generational trauma that continues to impact African Americans without acknowledging its symptoms. That's number one. Number two, recognition opens the door for treatment. If whatever, think about any kind of treatment system. If a person does not acknowledge that they have a problem, there's no way for you to solve the problem. In psychology, in counseling terms, I believe they call it insight. They call that moment when a patient, client, etc., can be brought towards some improvement in the condition that brought them to the office. They have to first have that insight, meaning that inside of themselves, they have to come to, oh yeah, I do have a problem, right? And get some sense of where that problem is nested or rested, or where it is embedded in their life, their psyche, etc. Then you can start moving towards the door of treatment, right? So here, brothers and sisters, is a partial list, and I underscore and emphasize a partial list of dysfunctional attributes, which are the symptoms of negrosis, right? Dependency on the approval of others, lack of economic unity, complacency and the acceptance of oppression, division based on skin color, focus on materialism over spiritual growth, lack of political engagement, internalized racism and self-hatred, lack of investment in education, engagement in crime and violence, failure to build strong family structures, imitation of white culture, lack of religious discipline and morality, over-reliance on charismatic leaders, failure to address economic inequality, glorification of gang culture and violence, lack of support for Black women, neglect of mental health and trauma, lack of unity across generations, overemphasis on integration, failure to build institutions. Look, that's 20 things, and that's a partial list of what we're talking about. And in fact, I generated that list. I'll tell you how I generated that list, and I just, decided to just cut off. I, look for Black leaders, and we're going to keep working with the terminology, who have had their own criticisms of the people that they were trying to bring to the higher states, the higher levels, the real possibilities. So we get statements from the Marcus Mosiah Garveys, the El Haj Malik El Shabazz, the Harriet Tubmans, the Frederick Douglasses, the E.B. Du Boises, blah, blah. All of those is, look, yeah, I'm telling y'all need to step up. You need to come up. You need to do this. Carter G. Woodson for sure. Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Imam W.D. Muhammad, and we're going to play a clip from him in a few moments, inshallah. The idea is like these criticisms are not coming from anybody but the people who are trying to help the people who need the help, right? But they still had to give these criticisms. I mean, it's just, you have to give the criticism so that people understand, look, this is your problem. All right. And listen, so I'm saying this list of just 20 things is nowhere near a complete list of the dysfunctional attributes and symptoms of this people who suffer from Negrosis. These symptoms are all attributes that were born in the experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. That's where it got started. The roots, the seeds, the foundation for these attributes and symptoms and qualities that we still see in this people. They were born there, but they continue to plague the African Americans to this very day. So what's in a name? This is very, very important. Let me something that's not on the screen so you can appreciate it as well from the religious perspective. Tradition gives us the idea of 99 attributes, right? These 99 Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Qudus, Al-Salam, Al-Mumin, Al-Mu'aymin, blah, blah. These are all the Sifatullah, the attributes of Allah. Excuse me. So those are attributes of Allah, right? But when you say Allah, when you say that word, when you make that sound, Allah, you are in that one sound saying all of the attributes of the Lord, cherish and sustainer of all the worlds, right? When you say Allah, you are saying inside of that sound, I want you to get it, inside of that sound, Allah is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Qudus, Al-Salam, Al-Mumin, Al-Muhaymin, etc., etc. When you say Allah, so when you understand the power of that word, A-L-L-A-H in English, right? Alif, Lam, Lam, Ha in Arabic. When you say Allah, you're saying all of those attributes. So when we say with the name Allah, you didn't say just something. You didn't say just something. You just made the most powerful sound in creation. When you said Allah. I got a story, but I'm not gonna tell. Some of you heard my Mustang story from 1980s, blah, blah, blah. I was in a situation where the only word, I didn't have time for La ilaha illallah. I didn't have time for Ya Rab. I didn't have Allahumma. I didn't have time for, all I had was one word. Allah. And I was being hit at least twice by I was in my car, so it wasn't me physically like Superman, but it was real damn close. In my car, so that's my car door, and that's that, what do you call those, whatever those freight trucks are, whatever they call them, Peterbilt, yeah, that kind of thing. It's coming just like this. Bam! And the only thing I could say was Allah. I didn't say Bismillah, La ilaha illallah, no. Allah. That thing hit me once and spun me around, hit me from the back first and then spun me around. Now it's coming to the side, it's about to hit me the second time. So the first time it hit me, Allah. Then the second time it was coming, all I had was Allah. And alhamdulillah, my presence here today demonstrates that. That was all I needed. Alhamdulillah. So the point is, the name Allah embraces everything that is to be ascribed to that creator, that unique reality, whose name is Allah. He told us, Qul huwallahu ahad. All right. So, all right, so the point is, a name is what binds a set of things together, right? So there on the left, you have the attributes or the symptoms, which are represented by these pencils here. And then the band around it is the name for that set. The name for that set is what binds it together, right? All right, so here's the case for Negro and Negrosis. The Negro and Negrosis is the name for the set of abnormal, dysfunctional thinking, behavior, character traits, and social conditions which commonly affects a significant number of African Americans. So I'm telling you, this is the name for what we see in the abnormal, dysfunctional thinking and behaviors and character traits and social conditions that affect a significant number of African Americans. When you see that we spend 97, 98% of our wealth outside of our community, that is Negrosis, right? And I'm not even going to start down that list. So whenever you see any other dysfunctional behavior that we, by and large, as a people, execute or act within, what have you, it's Negrosis. And what's that? Who does that? Negrosis does that. Okay. Now, important. Let's call it a caveat. This, although not all African Americans or new Muslim African Americans display the full range of effects associated with Negrosis. That is, we just gave a partial list of 20. It's rare that you're going to find all of those qualities and attributes in one body, okay? But there is some of it when you see it in a significant number of African Americans. I'm not just going to say 100%. I'm not going to say that. But you rarely see, or rather, you rarely see a full range of those effects associated with Negrosis. But there's a growing body of research studies and epigenetics and intergenerational trauma affirming that the historical trauma experienced by African American populations have contributed to a biological predisposition towards certain psychological or physiological responses. That is, we are inclined, we are predisposed to and subject to, just like you have families that have these predispositions to alcoholism and so many other traits. And we're going to get into that more in just a moment. But the point is to understand that while no, it doesn't affect all, but we carry the gene for Negrosis, literally, because of what was produced in the experimental clinic of chattel slavery, and the byproduct or the final product or the ultimate product of that the chattel slavery was the Negro. And the condition that the Negro manifests, we are saying, is Negrosis. And we'd have to go back to all that. What is that? It's the set of pathological dysfunctional behaviors and thinking that come in consequence of having been deprived of the function of the aspects of the vital areas of our lives. All right. Imam Muhammad calls them slave ghosts. Slave ghosts. We're talking about how is it in the 21st century we are still seeing from a significant number of this people these types of qualities and attributes which were born on the slave plantation, and so many have sought to dispel, disperse, eliminate, to cure those conditions in those people, but yet they persist. How so? It is congenital. How so? It is because it is something literally that's in the DNA itself. And as long as conditions in the environment obtain that call for the provocation of that, or what they call it, genetic capacitation, the genetic capacitation of these dormant and latent qualities, then that environment is going to constantly invoke and provoke and bring alive that behavior, that label here now, Negrosis. because there's a predisposition for it. It's an epigenetic effect. It's an intergenerational inheritance. That's what has to be recognized. And why? How is it? Why not? It's because it is actually a part of the mutation in the genes of the people. I ain't worried about whoever the Trumps and the Project 2025. Yeah, see, I ain't even worried about that. I'm not even worried about it. What I'm telling you is the truth, okay? And we have to go on to ours. Imam Muhammad, in my looking for the quotation where the Imam makes these types of statements, I found it in Newark, New Jersey. I believe it was September 86. He in the quote that I'm about to, or the piece that I'm about to play, he mentions this 1986 is when Reagan was the president at the time. That so he covers that, and I want to mention this in conjunction and connection with what Tyson, of course, who precedes me in this, that there is this line. See, I talk about the predisposition of the inheritance, the congenital, the intergenerational aspects of negrosis, which is the quote unquote, the non-positive qualities, the detrimental, dysfunctional qualities. But there is a line in that same people, and this is what we're seeking to be connected with, and I believe we are connected with it, but to stay connected with it and bring it more alive and activate much more of that quality, which are the positive, revolutionary, righteous rebellion, as my brother says. That's a part. That's the Marcus Mosiah Garvey. That's the Frederick Douglass. That's the Carter G. Woodson. That's the E.B. Du Bois. That's the Elijah Muhammad. That's the Ida B. Wells. That's the Harriet Tubman. That's the Sojourner Truth. That's the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That line, that's a line that's also an inherited line, but everybody's not tapped into that line. That's what we want to be tapped into. When we're tapped into that, that's the line that transcends and that's literally battling. W.B. Du Bois talks about the double-mindedness, double consciousness, and others have said it's similar. It's like there's a battle inside of us. There's the Negrosis battle, and then we have to get the other, the counterweight against the Negrosis. There's the one that's in us that's fighting for our excellence, and there's also the one that's in us that's inclined to death. And that's what we have to get away from. This is about a 10-minute clip from a lecture of Imam W.D. Muhammad. And any of you who are in touch with the archives of Imam Muhammad, and inshallah, Masjid al-Watheen soon is going to have an archive up there. But you can also go to Imam W.D. Muhammad Study Library that's produced by Dr. Mubashir Uqda. You can go into that and study this area. And when I say this area, I'm saying Imam Muhammad in the 80s. Imam Muhammad in the 80s. This is from the 80s, middle of the 80s. But from the 80s on to the 90s, I mean, if you want the hot sauce, if you want the W.D. Muhammad hot sauce, you need to get that. You need to go and find lectures from the 80s. It's like everything is rich, but I'm saying if you want that hot sauce, the 80s. And if you want it real, caliente, you can catch him in his Newark addresses. Imam W.D. Muhammad in the 80s in Newark, man, it's 4th of July, fireworks, right? So many of you, no doubt, many of you, perhaps I should say, have not heard this. This is 1986. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a little bit of it. And again, those of you who are with us live on Facebook, then you can, if you want to get the slide portion of it. The audio, hopefully is going to play loud enough for everything to be good. And the translation, The audio, yeah, it suffers a bit. Mashallah, it is what it is. Live through it. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and take it in. Catch what you can, right? But beyond that, it's worth any amount of time and effort you have to take to do it. So this is to speak to Imam Muhammad talking about the slave ghosts. Newark, 1986.
Oh, please. Keep it peaceful. That's peaceful. That is peaceful. That's peace loving. To tell the truth. And the best place to tell the truth is at home. If you can't tell the truth at home, you're in bad shape. And our country has a devil working in it. All this waste. The African American over here in America, President of America, we waste enough to restore the economy of certain nations in Africa and give them a good life. Yeah, we just take what we waste, and we over here crying the blues. If we just take what African Americans are wasting over here in America, and if we give that in dollar value to certain nations that need help in Africa, we can bring a strong economy, a strong life to some of those small nations of Africa, just with our waste. See, we got to live like the white man, like we imagine the white man lives. See, we imagine that the white man doesn't worry about no $5. And all I paid was $5 for this fast food box. So we take a few French fries, we all sitting up looking all nice and everything, and maybe wearing a fine ring, and shoes probably cost $80. Had enough money to put holes in our nose and holes in the ears, and hang something on it. Yeah, so we sit there and we eat our chicken box or whatever it is. Take a few fries. I don't want no more of that. Bites out of the chicken leg. Ate 4 fries. 1 bite off the biscuit. Didn't even taste the coleslaw. Left it all for the garbage can. It makes us feel good that we can throw away something. See, that's that old mind from way back. That unresurrected ancestor of yours, forefather, from the South. He never followed Marcus Garvey. He never followed Frederick Douglass. He didn't follow anybody. He just existed. And he recalls his existence. He recalls the master saying, when you clean these hogs, George, I'm going to give you some of it. And when he had been waiting so long for some of it, that he didn't have anything to throw away. So he ate chitlins, no beef, everything. He even tried to chew the tooth of the pig. Let the master throwing out stuff to his dog. And he wanted to run over there and get it before the dog got it, but it was embarrassing even for him to see. So he had to watch the dog chewing on the master's weight while his stomach was just boiling for it. Now you got that person in you in 1986. And you trying to satisfy that person instead of trying to satisfy the demands of your present situation in white, affluent, deceitful America. The ghost of the plantation or the ghost of the slave field is bidding you, show off for me. Please, show off for me. I wish that one day I would have enough that I could throw away something too. Take it away. You don't need it. You ain't that hungry. So without knowing that the old ghost of the plantation or the slave field is communicating with you, you just respond. You throw it away. Get a 5-day notice. Got to get out of that house or the man gonna carry you to court. You never think about all that chicken and french fries and all that stuff you threw away. All the clothes you wore just for one time and put them away and then never look at it again. I just don't like that. I can't wear that anymore. They saw me in that last week. So Allah says, think. For surely thinking profits. Oh, yes. God says to us in our Holy Spirit, surely thinking profits. Yeah, it grows. It benefits to you. And the Christians have a saying, as a man thinketh, so is he. So when we start thinking about the plight of the African American and the present day situation of African American with Reagan in the White House, we ought to remember, even as Muslims, remember the Christian saying, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And God says, never will he change the state of a people until they change what is bothering their soul. It's about the soul that we are a welfare race and generation. It's about your soul that we are 30 million strong in America in 1936 with every right legislated on the book that man could imagine with his law skills to protect us in America. In spite of this condition, we are still a dependent race in America, depending on who gets into the White House. A Jew is not depending on who goes into the White House. When comes here, he doesn't fasten his eyes on the White House. He's fastening his eyes upon opportunities for him to better his situation materially and every other way. And pretty soon he got enough substance down there on the ground level to justify him speaking on your level. And when you look at him, you say, hey, now the Cuban is speaking on our level. They're entering politics and demanding recognition without. And you look at his circumstances and you find that you're up there and yet down beneath him. Because you haven't done first thing. That man did first thing. He didn't go up on a ladder that had one rung at the top. He went up on a ladder that had rungs conveniently for him at every place on the ladder. And then when he got to the top, he had something. You get to the top and have to fall down from way up there. Because you ain't got nothing down here on the ground. Nothing structured from the ground. Going up. Pitiful. Pitiful in 1986. That 30 million people, if we were still separated in this country, if the South was still Jim Crow, we should be in a much better condition as a people in America in 1986 than we are. Because we know people have come over here and they've had to carry the burden of not being wanted, not being socially accepted. Many of the Africans that come over here, they ain't liked either by certain people, certain races. Huh? The Haitians come over here, they weren't welcome. But some of the Haitians have taken opportunity in a few years. They've taken advantage of the opportunity in America and have done more in a few years than we have done in 3 centuries. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What does that mean? The thought that your heart creates forms you. You're jealous of each other. And that jealousy creates thoughts that form you. You're suspicious of each other. That suspicion creates thoughts that form you. It comes in the heart and it influences the thinking. And that thinking forms you. So we are distrustful people. We don't trust each other. So I like the way you talk, but I wouldn't walk into the work field with you. I don't believe you can lead me economically. I don't believe you can lead me socially. We don't have leaders that are true leaders. If a leader is a true leader for us, not only the political leaders, the church leaders, I'm talking about leaders in academia, leaders in the public school system. If we really had true leaders, and I'm not attacking them, they can't be true because they don't know their situation yet. If we really had true leaders in the public school system, we will have a new policy, or they would be cast out. They would be rejected. We would have a new policy coming from them. We would have new treatment of the African American needs and minds. Yes. We would have new vision of what education should be for the student. We wouldn't just be recording and repeating what we learned from the white man. If we were true leaders, we would be looking at the situation as one who's a part of the people in the situation. Then you have to make that education serve the needs of these people in that situation. But instead of doing that, we do the same thing that the Uncle Toms did 25 years ago. We just imitate white man, imitate white authority, imitate them, and we think we have accomplished it all. I can talk like them, I can argue like them, I can do what they can do, so I've accomplished it all. No! When you take what they got and you reform it, you improve upon it, you make it suit your needs and your condition, then you have done something.